All right, guys, welcome back to episode. I'm forgetting what number it was, but another episode of the Lay Down podcast. Of course, joined by Lenny B, who is fresh off another finals appearance with his Golden State Warriors. We will be reviewing
Ooh.
that. We will also be reviewing Game 6 last night that happened between Miami and Boston. I was stunned by that result. And yeah, we're just going to be talking NBA playoffs. We don't really do this normally. Normally, we're an NFL podcast, but there's not really much happening with the NFL right now, and the NBA playoffs are really kicking into gear at this point. So,
Unless you really want us to talk about in-depth David Njoku's extension, I think we're fine.
yeah. Um, so, Lenny, I know you're a Warriors fan. I'm sure most of the people watching know he's a Warriors fan. How do you feel?
Dude, oh my God. We're going back to the finals. Oh my God. It's just like, again, I had this feeling ever since we went up the streak. What was it? When Steph got injured, man, I felt it with this team. I'm like, they don't need Steph to be good. They don't need, to be great. I don't know. I just had that feeling this whole time, like, oh man, like we're gonna run it back, aren't we? We're gonna run it back. We're gonna run it back. Draymond, like the way he was saying all year. I remember what game was it? In the press conference of game 7, I think, or not game 6 in the Grizzlies series, he's said something about the combination of young and old guys that we have here and how special it is. I don't know. It just feels great because it's the first time like this team's had a transition into new and still a lot of the old. You know what I mean? A lot of the
Right.
time, all the other championships have just been the main core, KD, Draymond, all those guys, and that was the core. But now we're leaking into a new era like Kuminga, Poole, Looney, Wiggins. Even I'm so excited just to see our guys play in the freaking finals again. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different ways that I'm going to tackle this. We'll start with kind of the playoff run in general. Or actually, before we even get to that, so I'll be honest, I kind of thought Golden State was done. You had Durant leave, you had Clay tear his ACL, you had Steph break his hand, you had Draymond, it looked like he was on the downside of his career. And then the Andrew Wiggins trade at the time did not seem like a slam
Oh
dunk
yeah,
great trade.
yeah.
Um, and so like I was really sad because anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge Steph Curry fan, and I did not want to see him retire with 5 finals appearances and no finals MVPs. And I just wanted to see him play in another NBA Finals because I think he's a really fun player to watch. And I was not confident that he would. Um, so they come back in 2020. They got the first pick of the draft, and took James Wiseman. Now James Wiseman hasn't actually contributed anything to this finals team, which is the funny part.
That's true.
And then in 2021, last season, that was probably the best I've seen Steph since his unanimous MVP season. He was amazing last season. I thought he could have won MVP,
He was.
but they missed the playoffs in spite of that. And so I'm like, how far away is this team? I don't know if Clay's going to come back and be old Clay, which he hasn't come back and been as good as he used to be. He's still been good though. But yeah, they're back here. They started the season, I think 17-3. I want to say it was something crazy like that.
It was a ridiculous start. I remember that.
They destroyed Brooklyn in a huge game, and Steph was in MVP form. He was looking like he did in 2016, and I really thought, this team then they legitimately looked like a finals team. And then Steph had that slump, and then Steph got hurt, and then Draymond got hurt around that time as well. And then they started to lose games and not look as good. But then at the end of the season, they had like this 5 or 6 game win streak without Steph Curry, and that really made me more confident in them. And I picked Phoenix to come out of the West, but I said it would come down to either Golden State or Phoenix. And little did I know what would happen in that Phoenix Dallas series. But
Thanks, Luca. Thanks, Luke.
um, yeah, Golden State looked pretty dominant against Denver, especially in the first 2 games. The Memphis series, I honestly was not very impressed with them. I thought they should have been more dominant. They lost, I think, by 50 in one of the games, but they were able to get that win. And then against Dallas, I think they're peaking right now. I thought this series was their best display of basketball. Between I think Steph had his best series. I think Andrew Wiggins was great. I think Clay looked like old Clay in Game 5.
Game six today came early.
Draymond got better throughout the series. Surprisingly, Jordan Poole, who was so big for them against Denver, did not have a very good series, and they were still able to beat Dallas with relative ease. I'm really impressed with how this team has kind of come together and how, like you said, two cores, two different cores. You have the Steph, Draymond, Clay core of 2015 through 2016, merging together with this new core of Poole, Kuminga, Wiggins, Moody, Looney, who was
Gary
part of
Payton
the
too. I
older team.
forgot about him.
He was
Gary
part
Payton.
of some of the older teams, but he is a bigger part of this team. Otto Porter. They've got a lot of depth, and I think that's really helped them. It's helped, Steph, an older player, has had more time on the bench. Same with Clay. So, yeah, I'm really impressed with what Golden State's been able to do. I think they're probably going to be favored in the NBA Finals, especially if they end up playing the Heat.
Who's
Uh,
been saying that this whole time? I have no
yeah, I
idea.
wonder.
Oh, who wonder? Yeah, I mean, especially like after what was it, 2019? When, or was it 2020? No, it was 2020. When just everything, it felt like everything was, it was like over. It felt like this was it, over. Dynasty's over. Like we had a good run. We're just gonna watch Steph right into the sunset now and play like a Kobe years when he has like nothing around him. But here we are. Here we are. And it looks like the future's bright too, which is something we weren't expecting. I don't think a lot of people were expecting coming out of this coming out of 2020. So I'm really excited, man. Even if we lose this series, which, we're going to figure out pretty soon here, but I'm just excited that we're even in the game, man. Especially when no one counted us for this season, inside going into this season.
It's weird because I think weirdly Boston's the team that I mean. I'm assuming Boston wins Game 7. Again, I could be wrong there, but I just think they're better than Miami. If you guys play Boston, I think you guys are peaking, and I think Boston is kind of been less impressive each series. I mean, they were really impressive against Brooklyn. They were not as impressive against Milwaukee until those final two games, and I've not been really that impressed with their relative inability to put away a Miami team. I think again they're better than so.
Yeah, to not get it done in the Garden, we can just transition into this.
Yeah.
The guy get it done in the Garden, Game 6. I mean, like, especially in how close of a game it was, the whole series. I think that just says a little bit about where they are as a team right now. I'm not saying they're bad. Obviously, they're in the freaking Eastern Conference Finals, and they're probably going to go to the finals. But you see the difference between the Warriors and Boston, like you're saying. The Warriors are peaking right now. That's huge, especially for just teams in general. You want to put it together right at the end. You want to peak right when you're going to the finals. Like, I mean, it's crazy to think that we've watched this team play so good and be putting out these teams like in the playoffs, and it's not even the best we're gonna get. But it feels like for the Boston, like they already showed us our best against Brooklyn, and that's worrying if you're a Celtics fan. And I mean, Jimmy Butler, can we talk about him? Oh my
Oh
God,
yeah, he was amazing.
points. 47 points. Oh my, that buzzer beater. What was it? Fallon. What was it? 2 seconds left. He sinks it from three. I was like, what is up with this guy? I was like, oh,
He's a poor 3-point shooter too. That's the
I
thing.
know.
He
He,
can never hit 3-point shots, and he hit. I think he hit 4 last night. It was crazy.
yeah. I mean, dude, like talk about clutch performance. Like right when you needed
He had
it.
17 fourth quarter points.
17 fourth quarter points, man. I mean, Kyrie Lowry, not Kyrie Lowry, sorry, Kyle Lowry goes out too. But I mean, like right at the end, he gets fouled out and he still puts up this three. And oh man, like it's just Jimmy Butler, man. Different human, different kind of human.
Yeah, but I agree with your Boston point. I was watching the game last night with Rose, and I'm just like, Miami is not as good. outside of Jimmy Butler, Boston's the better team here. I don't know Robert Williams went out of the game, but Bam Adebayo has done nothing outside of Game 3 in this series. Jimmy Butler, he had a great Game 6, but he was awful from Games 3 to 5. That's the
Mhm.
funny thing, and the other guys for Miami, I mean, Kyle Lowry had a good game before he fouled out, but he still had, I think he had 0 points in one of the games. He was not having a great series. He's also been hurt. Max Strus, yeah, he's been up and down. Same with Gabe Vincent. Same with Oladipo. Like nobody outside of Butler, and Butler did it from games 3 to 5, has stepped up for Miami. Tatum's been good. Jaylen Brown has been very good outside of those missed free throws yesterday.
Mhm.
Um, and
Smart.
Boston still is playing a game. It's so troubling with this team because I don't know how they're in this position. Um, I mean, I guess Grant Williams has been poor. I would say Al Horford has not been as good. Marcus Smart is not. Marcus Smart looks hurt. He was getting kind of
That's
torched defensively, and he won Defensive Player of the Year. He couldn't make a shot to save his life either yesterday. But I think part of it is Spoelstra, and look, I think Ime Udoka is a good coach, but I don't think he's on Spoelstra's level. And part again, it's just Jimmy Butler, just amazing performance from him. But I don't see how it's so true. You guys can hear it. Like I'm struggling to see how this series is still going on, considering how lifeless Miami looked in games 4 and 5, and there's still no Tyler Hero, who was having a bad playoff run, but is still probably their second best scorer.
I think a lot of for Boston, their issues have come up like recently. Is they just had a 7 game series against Milwaukee, right? They just had a 7 game series, and now they're going to go all the way to Game 6 again, and now they're going to go straight to Game 7 again. They've had 2 series where they've had little to no
Yeah,
rest.
grueling in their physical series too against good defenses.
Exactly. I mean, playing Giannis like the way they were playing him. Now they got to play Jimmy Butler like that. I mean, like, yeah, it's just I think it's very physically taxing for the team. Like the Warriors, like the Nuggets, when they played the Nuggets, they really didn't have
They didn't take the Nuggets
physical.
seriously.
Yeah, they weren't. It was very not like serious. I think the Grizzlies series was very like a lot more tense, but at least we got it to Game 6, and now we got this one into Game 5. I mean, like,
This series was a joke. It really
they
was.
really have had all the rest that they wanted this whole series. I mean, they're going to get Gary Payton back too. It's just like for the Eastern Conference right now, you're kind of wondering, like, I don't know. It's just a big question mark for me right now, at least. I don't know if you're thinking the same way.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Payton coming back would be huge. I don't know how big it would be necessarily against Boston or
Mm.
Miami, because neither one of them really have elite guard play. Whereas against Luca or John Morant, who you've played, it would have mattered more. But it certainly helps the defensively. But I've been really impressed with Golden State's defense all season. Like I think they were first in defensive rating in the regular season. They've been a good defensive team in the postseason. So yeah, it helps. But I don't think I think they were already starting from a fairly high point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Uh, Momentum very much came into the Warriors going
But I
into the.
don't think. Sorry to cut you off there. I don't think they've been quite as good in the postseason, but yeah, I think they've been good.
I think. Who do you think is going to win Game 7? For Miami, I think you said Celtics are probably going to win.
I think Boston should win,
They
and I
should, but
kind of think they will, but I'm not. I'm not as confident as I should be, considering the two teams. If that
I
makes
I
sense.
think the way I'm thinking about it, if Jimmy Butler goes off again, I think the Heat win. If he doesn't go off the same way or similar, I think Boston wins. I really think it's like that. I think Jimmy Butler has that big of a performance. Like, he's such a big deal to this team. I'm not saying he's going to drop like 47 again. I just think, like, if he has a big game, they're going to get Tyler Hero back. They're playing at home. I think it's a pretty good chance that they win if Jimmy Butler drops like 40, 30 points.
Here's the thing. It's so
We'll see,
Jimmy
though.
Butler in this series is averaging 24 points on 46% field goal percentage. That's good. That's better than what Durant did. That's not as good as what Giannis did. But it's been really weird because it's not like he's been that consistently. He's either
No,
been amazing, like he was in the first two games, or he was in Game Six, or he's been nearly unplayable as he was from games three to
he had
five.
19 points in 2 games, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
So
bad.
what Jimmy if Butler scores 24 points on 46% shooting, I don't know if that'll be enough because I don't think Tyler Hero even coming back is going to be 100%. And he's also again he's had a poor playoff run as I said earlier. I think what they need is Bam Adebayo to show up because again he's been disgraceful in this series other than Game Three. But Robert Williams is banged up. He's the Celtics rim protector. I don't think Al Horford can really stop him, at least nearly as well as Williams can. And I think Bam's got to show up. Bam's got to have 18, 20 points in Game 7 for Miami to win. I think Boston should win. If Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown show up, have solid games, then I think and at least one of their role because the problem what really helped them in that Milwaukee series was how good their role players were. But Grant Williams has struggled these last couple games. Marcus Smart has really struggled. He's shooting 36% from the field in the series. Derek White out. He had a good game 6, but he's not been great in this series. They're going to need one of their other guys to show up. Who that is, I'm not sure, but it's got to be one of those guys. And same can be said for Miami. But I still trust Boston's role players more. I still think Smart and Grant Williams and Al Horford and those guys. Derek White. I haven't seen anything from Oladipo or Vincent or Strus to make me think they're going to have a good game. I mean, Max Strus is shooting 30%. Victor Oladipo is shooting 30%. Gabe Vincent shooting sub 40%, sub 36% from three. It's not they've not shot the ball well either.
Yeah, it's like I see your point. Jimmy Butler isn't going to have it probably like he probably won't drop like 30, 40 again. That's pretty likely just based on what we've seen in the playoffs so far. And so then you'd have to ask another player to step up. And it's just like we don't know. But that's probably not going to happen. Like it just doesn't feel like that's going to happen, especially against this defense. I get your point. I don't know. This is like this kind of aura after that Jimmy Butler game. I don't know. That's
No,
like the
I
only
get I definitely get it. I mean, it's hard to bet against Jimmy Butler when he's been the best player in by far in 3 of the 6 games. I think
Mhm.
what'll probably happen to him in Game 7 is he's going to be better than he was from Game 3 to 5. And he'll be not as good as he was in Games 1, 2, or 6. But that's just kind of how I feel.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. I mean, it's hard to ask any player, especially one like Jimmy Butler, who, like you said, is not great from three, to put up such a great performance again right after they just did it. I mean, especially going traveling too. You want to account for that. I mean, I don't know.
So Boston's -2.5 in most betting markets and -145 on the money line. Miami's +120. Who do you think wins game set? I'm gonna say Boston wins. I'm gonna say Boston covers. I'm not confident in either
I think it's a pretty safe bet. Like if you think Boston's gonna win, I think it's a safe bet that they're gonna cover 2.5.
because they kind of blew out the Bucks in that game 7.
That's true. Man, yeah, that was a shock. Actually, I was like when they blew. That was a big shock. I was just remembering that. I haven't thought about Milwaukee in a long time. Not after all these, like after the Warriors series. I've just been thinking about what's going to happen with the Warriors. They'll probably cover that. They'll probably cover that.
So you think Boston wins?
Yeah, I think Boston wins. I think there's just too many outliers for the Heat right now. Like too many like I don't knows, Like you're saying Celtics are very like I know what I'm going to get from this team. I know who's going to show up, I know who's going to play good, and I know that I'm pretty sure that's more than what the Heat have right now. I just think it's yeah, I think the Heat are going to lose sadly. Maybe hopefully a Kawhi Leonard shot doesn't happen like the Raptors series just
Oh, that'd
ends.
be hard to watch.
That
Yeah,
would be the saddest thing of all time, honestly.
yeah. All right, Lenny. Let's get into some Steph Curry legacy talk. My favorite topic currently. Um, So it's been kind of ever since they joined and they won that for, oh, Lenny's gone. What happened? Anyway, I'll improvise
Sorry, I
here.
had to do something.
Let's get into Steph Curry legacy talk, my favorite topic currently.
Stephen Ordell Curry.
Um, so ever since Kevin Durant joined the Warriors, there's been kind of this. I don't really think rivalry between Steph and Durant because I mean they're obviously friends, or I assume they're cool at least off the court. They were teammates, even though Durant like that one tweet of him saying, "Oh, Steph's nothing without Durant. He's trash." You know, I outside of that, they seem cool off the court, but there's always been kind of this thing between fans, like, okay, who's actually better, Steph or Durant? Who's greater all time? And I've said for really since 2016, I've been in the Steph camp. I think you've been in the Steph camp. Um, I think what we've seen these playoffs has it reaffirmed it. Would you say? I think with Steph in another NBA Finals, with Durant getting swept in the first round, if the Warriors beat Boston in the finals and Steph has a good series, um, I mean, that's is there really an argument left for Durant? Because the Durant argument for me right now centers around longevity, even though he's only played 2 more years, and really it centers around pure talent and those finals series. But yeah, you live in the Bay Area. What's the feeling down there about that whole conversation? And then tell me your opinion.
If I were to go to any Kevin Durant, like any person in the Bay Area, and ask them about Kevin Durant, they'd either say, "Who is that?" or number two, "Screw that guy. We don't like them. We don't like him." Basically, those are the two things I think I'd hear. I don't know if a lot of Warriors fans right now like care about Kevin Durant because we're in the finals, like whatever. That was 3 years ago. Like who cares, right? I think generally people that just like Steph more in the Bay Area, even like regardless of all the like how you prove it, people just like Steph more. It's just like as simple as that. But though personally for me, I think it's a argument of value with Steph and Kevin Durant. Like you see that Steph has been in the finals without Kevin Durant for the third time. Third time,
Yeah,
yes.
third time.
Yep. And you see Kevin Durant, he made it to the finals with James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and that one series OKC. I mean, like, I think it's just clear to me that his value just does not equal Steph. Like, it just anywhere Kevin Durant goes, anywhere that Steph's been, it's just been Steph has always had more value on his team. It's just always been like that. I feel, and it didn't change when he came here. Steph is just so much better of a leader. He's a better teammate. He's just a better overall player. Personally, I'm going to take Steph Curry all time, even though I do think Kevin Durant is very close. I don't think it's like a gap. I think it's like, yeah, I think Steph's better.
It's like 12 versus 13 all time. But
Exactly. It's not like a
I
huge
mean,
no.
I was looking through some stuff because I knew we were going to talk about this. So when you look at, I'll post this in the BLV group chat. But when you look at the stats when they were together, because I think there's this perception that Durant was just way better when they were both playing. That's not true.
Not even.
I'll post it in the BLV group chat right here. So from 2017 to 2019 in the regular season, Durant was 27 points per 75 possessions, 7.5 rebounds, 5.7 assists, about a steal and 2 blocks per game. On pretty good efficiency, 58% from two, 38% from three, 88% from the free throw line. On plus 6.3% relative effective field goal percentage, plus 8 relative true shooting percentage, and the Warriors were rated 9 points higher in net rating when he was on the court than off the court. Whereas for Steph, it's 28.5 points per 75, about 5 rebounds, about 7 assists, 2 steals, just under half a block, on 54.6% from two, 42% from three, 91% from the line, on better efficiency, better relative effective field goal percentage, better relative true shooting percentage. And the big one here is net swing. The Warriors were 15.6 points rated higher when Steph was on the court, compared to 9.2 for Durant. So when I was looking through the regular season stats when they were together, Steph came out to looking a little bit better. I mean, that's just, and again, from what I remember, I did not expect that because I think what happened was in 2017, I think that was the greatest team ever. And I think it was because it was a Steph system with Durant playing kind of that Harrison Barnes role. And he was like a 15 times better version of what Harrison Barnes was. He fully bought into that system, and that created basketball nirvana. And that team, I just think, is
Nirvana.
unbeatable. I really do. I've that Cleveland team that they beat in the finals was actually a pretty good team. They were better than they were the year before, in my opinion. And Golden State, it was easy. It was not even competitive. In
Yeah,
2018, I think it went more towards Durant iso ball, and that's almost what got them beat against Houston that season. Even with a huge talent advantage, they almost lost that. I mean, they might have lost that series had Chris Paul not gotten hurt, which seems like every Chris Paul series. But they might have lost that series. It's certainly a possibility. And then it still worked enough though to where it was still a title team. But by 2019, it really just went to Durant iso ball, and
they weren't playing well-rounded basketball. Yeah,
yeah, and
no,
even they added DeMarcus Cousins. That was the most talented Golden State team in terms of starting fives that they've had, and they underwhelmed in the regular season. That series against the Clippers in the first round went 6 games. They were in a tie series against Houston in the second round. They were not. They might have lost the title that year because it was just a Durant iso ball system. And when Durant got hurt, Steph exploded in that Houston game 6. Steph exploded in those Western Conference Finals, and Steph had a great, NBA Finals against Toronto. I don't know why people think he had underperformed. It doesn't really make sense to me. Um, but they lost because Clay got
yeah,
hurt. I honestly think if Clay had stayed healthy in that game 6, they probably could have won that game, and then it would have gone to a game 7. So, I mean, like it's hard because I do think Durant is a more talented basketball player. He's a better defender than Steph. He is not as good of a playmaker, but he is he's slightly worse as a shooter. He is probably a more talented scorer, just versatility wise, and he just he's just more talented. He's a better rebounder, even though if he's an underwhelming rebounder, and again he's a better defender. But where I think Steph checks him, or Steph gets the advantage over him, would be leadership for sure. Durant is not a leader. You touched on that earlier. Steph is the ultimate leader. Durant really isn't. I think Steph impacts games more between ball handling, taking defensive attention. You know, those Golden State years, I cannot really preach how many open looks Steph and Clay generated for Durant, and Steph's just had more success without him. Like I think that's the end all be all right now as Lenny wears the championship ring. Steph's got one of those without him. He got to another finals beating him that way, and coming back from 3-1, and now he's in another finals. So if, say, the Warriors win the title, Steph Curry wins Finals MVP, does he move into your top 10? Because for me, he does. I think my
yeah.
top 10 currently, in no order: Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, not Hakeem Olajuwon, just outside. Um, Kobe Bryant would be in it, Tim Duncan, Shaquille O'Neal, and LeBron James. I think I'd put Steph Curry above Shaq if he wins the title. That's my opinion.
I think it's totally fair. With Shaq, I guess like if we're gonna like compare here, the argument with Shaq is just how dominant he was when he was. It's just like he was just literally insane. Like it's like Giannis esque. It was just like who? There's no way. Steph is not that kind of player. I mean, he was in 2016, but it's a more of a longevity game with Steph and just generally accolades and all that. So if he does win another one here, especially when he's the main focus, and he would have went to 3 finals, 2-time winning, and if he wins Finals MVP, which he probably will if he has a good game, like just because he
I
hasn't
think
gone.
they kind of want to. They want to. I mean, there's such a huge narrative about him not
Right.
winning Finals MVP now I cannot see him if they win not winning it. Especially with how as time has gone on, that Iguodala MVP just looks more and more stupid.
But with all that considering, I do think you'd have to favor Steph in that. Like, not that it's not close. Obviously, we're splitting hairs again, but I mean, I think the accolades and just generally the success that Steph has, it's just too much to ignore when comparing to Shaq's legacy. If you were going to leapfrog it like that, so I would agree with that statement. Like, I do think if he wins this final, like, and he plays good, which he probably will, but if he does play good and he wins Finals MVP, he is probably all time better than Shaq. And no disrespect to Shaq because he was amazing when he played, obviously. But I would have to. I agree with that. I would agree with that.
Yeah, the one thing I kind of do look at with Shaq compared to a guy like Steph, and maybe this is unfair. If you think it's unfair, that's your opinion. I'm cool with that. But I know Steph has achieved everything he possibly could in his career, and Shaq really hasn't, to me at least. I think Shaq left a little on the table. His 2002 peak, that was maybe the greatest 3 year stretch in NBA history. But what Steph's been able to do for the last 10 years, he's gotten every possible kind of he's maximized his potential. I think that's how I'd put it.
Yes.
I don't really know if Shaq ever did.
No, that's totally true. I mean, Shaq could have been. He could have ended his career as like, is LeBron, MJ, or Shaq the GOAT? That could have really been a conversation if he were to like because work ethic was a big thing with him. Which, like, I don't care really. Like, do whatever you want, get money, like, be good at basketball. You don't have to be MJ or LeBron. I don't care. It's just more like if we're gonna argue it, I totally agree. Like, Steph definitely reached the ceiling that he was able to get. We talk about ceilings with players all the time, NFL and NBA, MLB, like literally every sport league. I don't think there's an argument to say that Steph hasn't reached the peak that he was capable of. They're like, this is literally as good. Like the timeline, this is the timeline where he did as much as possible to be as good as possible.
Right. And I think kind of transitioning here, would you say this Golden State team's the worst one to make the finals? Because I would. And that's no disrespect to this team. They're a very good team. But I think that the
Talent
5 teams
wise,
that
I
made
would
it.
definitely say so. I would definitely say so talent wise. I think the chemistry is very low key underrated though. That's the thing. That's the way I like look at it. I would definitely say talent wise, like the way I'm trying to explain it is that like the first year that they got to the finals, right? Sure, they were a more talented team. They were better players at that point, and they had they were better. They were just better. But now we have a team that's been through all that, had all those things that happened to them. They've had all the experience now, and they're just better prepared for a finals than that team was. That's just true. They've been through all that. Steve Kerr, he's been through a
Than the
million
15
finals.
team?
Yes. And I'm not saying like the 15 team's bad or anything. I'm just like
No, I mean, they
comparing.
won 67 games, won the title. They're obviously
I
a
know, I
great
know.
team.
But I'm just saying, like, in terms of chemistry, I would definitely say this is a better team just because they've been there. They've done that. They know what's up. They know everything that's happened. But obviously, talent wise, I don't think you can compare with a lot of these teams. What would be like the closest you think talent wise? I don't really know.
So it's definitely not the 17 through 19 teams because
No.
those were ridiculous.
Yeah.
This 2016 and 2015 teams. Here's the thing, because I think Steph was definitely better in 15, and especially that 16 season might have been the best ever. He was
Yeah.
better then. He's a step slower now. He's a little more hesitant now. He's just not as good now. He might be like a better, more physical player, but he's just what he excels at is shooting, and he was in another stratosphere shooting in 15 and 16 from the rest of NBA history. He's still above 98% of NBA history now, but he's just not quite there, and I think you would attest to that. Clay was obviously better, and I think Draymond was more in his defensive peak, and he could still shoot on open threes then. Um, so I wouldn't say this team's as good as that team was, but I think this team's still very. I think this team's good enough in a year full of parity that they can win the title. That's kind of how I see it. And I look at I think Boston's definitely the harder matchup for you guys.
No, I would agree. Boston is just in a team where we feed off like just amazing runs. I think the Celtics are the best prepared team in the NBA to handle that, like to limit these runs. Because what we do is that we get up like big with these big threes and we let them come back, or we just don't have a great like because shooting is very unreliable in the NBA. Like it's just not something that's going to always be consistent.
That's why
And
there's so many more comebacks now.
exactly, and they're going to go on these runs, but if the Celtics can make it so that when we go on these long runs where we shoot threes, like 4 threes in a row, like in within 2 minutes or something like that, if they can limit to that to like 3 threes and maybe like a couple more rebounds defensively, that's probably the way I'd say that they favor over Miami. Miami can't do that. Miami doesn't have the defensive wherewithal to do that to us, and I don't think offensively they match up like I don't think they
Oh
match
no,
up.
they're a terrible matchup for you guys
Yeah, no.
offensively. Like
So
they
So yeah, I mean I do definitely think Boston is they have the potential to be like a problem. Like they could be a problem. I think the way I'm thinking about it
I think
though,
either series would be really defensive
yes, for sure.
relative to some of the other series we've seen. Like last year's finals was not all that defensive, but this I think all these teams are good offensive teams, but they're better defensive teams.
Mm.
That's and I think we've seen through the playoffs the better defensive teams have gone further and further. All right, Lenny, thanks for joining. Congrats again on making the finals, and yeah, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with anyone who might be interested, and God bless.